Welcome to Zombie Strains, the podcast that watches all the zombie movies. This week, The Avengers. No, not the Marvel superheroes, the spy show from the 1960s. This episode is from 1967, Return of the Cybernauts.
You know, I've seen people act like that in pictures. What do they call them, zombies or something?
Zombies?
What's a zombie? Well, a zombie is, Mr. Bill is...
The living dead.
They are the living dead.
Get into zombies.
It's an army of zombies no armies could stand.
The unburied dead are coming back to life and seeking human victims.
I saw the dead rise.
Kill the brain, and you kill the ghoul.
Welcome to Zombie Strains. I'm John.
And I'm Andy.
Andy, we watched more TV while Brad is away. Imagine the Zombie Strains lab has an old CRT, and we watched some old 1960s television on it. What did we watch, Andy?
We watched Return of the Cybernauts, which is episode 17 of season 5 of the spy-fi show The Avengers.
I was surprised at there being Cybernauts. Like, this felt very Doctor Who in a way that I didn't expect.
Yes, absolutely. So I suppose we should pause for a minute and say, yeah, I mean, this podcast, we normally do movies. We are in between seasons, as it were.
Yep.
And so while we and producer Brad prep for launching into the zombie movies of the 1970s, John and I are circling back because we're kind of interested in what TV is doing with the concept of the zombie during the 60s. During the 60s in zombie film, we have a pretty dramatic evolution of the genre as we move from the zombies as sort of sad, silent, unstoppable assassins.
Yeah.
To, by the end of the decade, we are looking at Night of the Living Dead's cannibalistic hordes that are taking over the earth. So John and I are just interested to see if the TV shows that featured zombies, if they are kind of mirroring that evolution of the genre or if they are doing their own thing. So
yeah, and that was really interesting. And I think the last episode we watched had a certain response, and this one has a very different response. So I'm kind of excited.
It does indeed. Yeah. John, I will get into it, but I think this episode had two distinct types of zombie in it.
It did.
Yeah.
So. And for folks who are wondering when we're going to get back to movies, don't worry, very soon, in the next few weeks, and I don't want to spoil anything, but in our first episode, we welcome back an old friend and a new friend. So
yes,
we'll look forward to that.
That was very cryptic, but
I try.
Yes. All right. So, hey, shall we jump into the Avengers, John?
Let's do it. I think you are producer Brad.
Yeah, I'm going to do my best producer Brad imitation here. I have a lot of notes that are way less organized than what producer Brad does, so bear with me. I want to talk about the show Avengers itself, and then I will touch on the there's a number of like very famous actors in this episode that I want to touch on as well. So The Avengers is a British TV show that ran from 1961 to 1969, and it is a real cultural artifact. It perfectly embodies the swinging London and spy-fi vibes. If you think of what Austin Powers is making fun of, it's exactly this. So bright colors, jumpsuits, sound effects, everything.
And attitude. Like
yes.
I have an example I want to bring up later, so remind me, but there's a sort of blasé attitude about the whole thing that anyway, carry on.
Yeah. So, John, you're a James Bond person, right?
Yes. Yep.
So there are a number of James Bond connections between the Avengers and James Bond movies. Is James Bond like a very well-established movie franchise at this point, or is it still starting out?
It is becoming a well-established franchise, right? We've had 5 movies since the first one that have come out by this time. So the first one was Dr. No, then From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, and Thunderball. And then You Only Live Twice. So those are the 5 movies that were here, and You Only Live Twice is the same year as this show.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm going to get into, there's some real Bond connections here I'll get into in a minute. So,
But also, the novels are well established. I mean, the reason that the Bond movies took off partially is the novels were kind of a huge hit in England, and those started coming out in the 50s. So,
okay. So it is the era of a very particular type of spy show and spy movie that's embodied. And so, all right. So the Avengers ran for quite a while. It like totally revamped itself a year or two in. It started out as a gritty black and white British crime drama.
right.
And it originally starred Ian Hendry as David Keel, who was out avenging his fiance's murder. And it's kind of a grim premise for the show.
Which actually tracks with James Bond. I remember, when I grew up watching James Bond movies in the 70s and 80s, and it was Roger Moore and Flip Comments, not unlike this episode of this show, but I went back to Dr. No, which is a very different movie in 1962, and I was who is this thug? It was just had a total different vibe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting. So, but after the first season, they revamped the show. Ian Hendry left, and the other actor who had been sort of the sidekick is Patrick McNee, and they made him be the centerpiece and the main protagonist of the show. And for the rest of the show's run, they always paired him up with a woman partner secret agent.
It wasn't always Diana Rigg as
it
Emma
was
Peel?
not. No.
Oh. Well, she's the famous, she's the most famous one. I just thought she was in all of them. But.
Yes, she was actually only in it for about 2 years.
Oh, wow.
So over the run of the show, Patrick McNee always had a female partner agent, and the show went through 3 of these agents. The first one was Honor Blackman, who played secret agent Kathy Gale for a couple of years.
Okay.
For several years, in fact. And guess what? Well, I mean, I've hinted at this, but what franchise poached her to be in a movie?
Was it James Bond?
It was James Bond. They poached her to be in, I think, Goldfinger, where she played a character whose name I still have trouble accepting that
I know
that this character showed up.
Yes.
You know who I'm talking about? But
would that be Pussy Galore?
It would, yes. Particularly subtle name in a famously subtle franchise, but yes. So,
yes, famously subtle.
But with Honor Blackman's time on the Avengers, it started to make this shift into this very over-the-top swinging 60s spy action show with lots of bright colors, lots of 60s sound effects, and plots that were not so much gritty anymore as they started to move into comic booky type plots with megalomaniacal villains and ludicrous plans to conquer the world, that sort of thing.
Yes.
The episode we are watching is from the 5th season of the show, and it is the 2nd season that starred Diana Rigg as as Emma Peel. And this is I think considered kind of the high point of the show, is her stretch of time on it.
Yeah.
Diana Rigg as Emma Peel is kind of the ultimate 60s sex symbol, if you might.
Yeah.
And
go-go boots, short dresses, outlandish outfits, and knows kung fu.
Yes, exactly. And Patrick McNee played John Steed, and Diana Rigg was Emma Peel, and they were equal partners.
Yes.
Emma Peel was not subordinate to Steed. He wasn't giving her orders. And while Emma would occasionally get kidnapped and have to be rescued, Steed would get kidnapped and have to be rescued by Emma from time to time. So this was kind of a big deal to the point where I don't know if we have our sort of competent, badass female action heroes of the later decades without Emma Peel in this role. Any thoughts, John?
I think that is true. I'd have to do a broader survey of movies at the time, but I think having the idea that a woman could be a spy in entertainment and be a spy that does something other than seduce men or something.
Exactly. Yes.
Is new here, I think. Like there's probably, if we were doing the espionage strains, our next podcast, we might have gotten to this point and been like, have constructed a history of women spies in cinema, but it feels new to me for 1967.
So I'll wrap up this overview of the Avengers in just a second here, but the show really peaked in popularity when it got into a spot on a primetime US TV, and that made it a global phenomenon, basically.
Yes.
Diana Rigg left the show after the 5th season, and guess which franchise poached her to be in a movie?
It wasn't James Bond again,
It was James Bond. Do you remember which?
No.
So the Avengers produced 2 Bond girls. Do you remember which movie she was in?
I don't, and I feel bad because producer Brad would know right off the top of his head.
It was
Diamonds Are Forever. I'm just guessing.
It was on Her Majesty's Secret
Service.
Do you remember what set her apart from all the other Bond girls?
I don't.
She married James Bond.
That's right. They got married, and then Roger Moore's run starts with him putting flowers at her grave and avenging her death, sort of against Blofeld. That's right.
Exactly.
I had forgotten that. Yep.
So the show went on for a couple more years after Rigg left. A new actress came on, Linda Thorson joined, playing Secret Agent Tara King. The show continued to really lean into its kind of comic booky silliness, and it was eventually canceled. There was a lot of production difficulties in its last couple of years, but most importantly, it lost out in a critical time slot battle with, do you want to guess what show it lost out to in 1969?
It can't be Star Trek.
I don't think you've ever heard of it.
No, I don't.
It lost out to Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In.
Get out of here. I mean, I have theoretically heard of that, though. I've never watched it. That's Dean Martin, I assume.
Yes. So,
unfortunately.
All right. So The Avengers, an important show, very fun show. I do want to talk about a couple of the main people that appear in this.
Yes.
This episode was directed by Robert Day. He directed, I think, a total of 6 episodes of The Avengers. Robert Day was I saw him described online as a journeyman director. He started all the way at the bottom and he worked his way up to the role of director. He started out as a clapper boy. Do you know what that is?
It's the person when they say action and they smack the clapper.
Yes,
that makes
exactly.
that sound, and that's how you know that's how the editor knows what scene.
I didn't know that was called a clapper boy. It made me laugh. I had to Google it. So then he worked his way up to camera operator and cinematographer. He worked with a lot of famous people. And by the time he was tapped to direct this episode of The Avengers, he had filmed a ton of stuff in a wide range of genres, including the horror genre, which I think he does bring a little bit of that into this episode. We'll get into it. He is known because he spent so much time operating cameras. He had a real eye for interesting camera angles.
The episode opens with one.
Yes, it's definitely a thing in this episode. So, yes, that's all I think we need to say about the director, Robert Day. So there are 3 famous people I wanted to talk about in this episode. The first, let's just talk about Diana Rigg. Yep. I think she's arguably, she's the best known character from this show. Diana Rigg is famous, and I'm not going to just read you her Wikipedia biography, which you can go and read yourself, and I encourage you to do it because she's a pretty interesting character. But she was cast at age... How old do you think she was when she was cast as Emma Peel?
I'm going to say 24.
26, so pretty close. She plays Agent Emma Peel, and the name Emma Peel is a pun on something. Do you want to guess what it might... Do you have any idea what it might be?
I don't.
Emma Peel. So when the directors, an enlightened and progressive bunch, I'm sure, when the showrunners were listing out the traits that the character needed to have, the main one was man appeal, which they abbreviated to M appeal. And then as a joke, they just named the character Emma Peel. So that maybe gives you some insight into what they valued in their
tells
actors.
me everything I need to know.
Yes, exactly. All right. So she was here in season 5 is the first season of the show that was in color, and it really brought out her outfits, which she is very famous for. Like Patrick McNee, her co-star, she worked with some designers that made her very iconic 60s outfits. The first couple of episodes that she was in, she wore a famous black leather cat suit. You've probably seen a photo of it.
Yeah, that's how everybody thinks of Diana Rigg in this show.
Yes. John, why do you think she stopped wearing the cat suit after a couple episodes?
I would assume because parents complained.
It's possible, but A, it was super hot, and B, it made such loud creaking noises when she moved that it kept ruining the show audio. So they had to stop.
I gotcha.
So,
yeah, I don't. And by the way, it's not like Hollywood has matured on from putting women in ridiculous outfits. I remember 7 of 9.
Oh, yes.
From Voyager, her first version of that outfit was so tight she passed out, so they had to make a new one.
That's just fantastic. Not fantastic at all. So after that, they worked with her to come up with her new set of clothes, which has come to sort of represent the entire swinging spies in London vibe. John, so she came to wear these really recognizable bright bodysuits or jumpsuits. And John, I'm going to put in our chat. Viewers can't see this, but maybe we'll put it in the show notes. These were so popular and so connected to her. What do you think they called the jumpsuits that she popularized?
I have to guess peels.
Close. I'm going to put it in the chat. And why don't you tell us what you see?
All right. Diana Rigg and the Emma Peeler. That's original.
Yeah. So.
I would call this a tracksuit with a belt. Yeah.
Yes. A belt that's like 6 inches too low to work it correctly as a belt.
Yes. No, I think the belt has no support purpose at all.
Yeah. Okay. So Diana Rigg, this had rocketed her to global fame, like other people in her situation, like Jerry Ryan that we were just discussing. She had a really mixed experience with fame. She came from a theater background, so becoming an instant international sex symbol was pretty overwhelming, and she experienced that friction of wanting to be known as the serious actor that she could be versus the demand of Hollywood that she just look great in a jumpsuit.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I've been thinking of that a lot. Obsession was a breakout hit. And I imagine that Indy Navarrete, I believe that is her name, who plays the lead in Obsession, who was, by all reports, amazing. I still haven't seen it, and it's killing me.
You're going to like it. So.
Yeah. She went from nobody to everybody in a month. And I just think about, what is that like? I don't think you could watch E! True Hollywood Story all you want. And I don't think it prepare you for the actuality of that experience. I imagine she gets 10 calls about being in movies a day right now. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
No, from my reading, it was a really overwhelming experience for Rigg. And so her co-star, Patrick McNee, we'll get to him in just a minute, but he ended up kind of taking her under his wing. He was really experienced in the television industry. He'd been in it for many years. He was older, and he would do cool things like when the reporters would ask really invasive or rude questions during an interview, he would redirect the question to himself and other things like that. And they remained friends. He helped ease her. He helped her figure out what it meant to be suddenly really famous. And they were friends until they died, basically.
That's great.
Yeah.
Also, she worked for a long time.
She did.
She was in Game of Thrones.
Her last major role was in Game of Thrones. I haven't actually seen Game of Thrones, but she was. Neither. Is it Olenna Tyrell?
Yes.
It's kind of. I think it's a fan favorite role. I think she has a couple really memorable scenes.
Yeah, I think so.
And so after a couple of years of the Avengers, she decided she was ready for a change. So she went and was a Bond girl. After that, she actually went back to theater, which was her first love. And I don't know about you, John, but I actually know Diana Rigg best from her many years succeeding Vincent Price as the host of PBS's Mystery.
I didn't know that.
Yes, she hosted that for I think over a decade.
Oh, wow.
So she had a really colorful career. You can read all about her. On the set of the Avengers, she did a lot of her own stunts, so she was constantly getting beat up, and we're going to talk about that in a couple of moments in this episode where she's hurled across a room.
Yes, that was crazy. And Patrick McNee clearly does not do his own stunts, by the way.
Yes. Would you guess, John, that in the mid-'60s, there was a lot of concern on set for the safety of actors?
I would guess not.
She is quoted as saying that the showrunners had as much, quote, about as much consideration for actor safety as a piece of old scenery.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, last thing I want to note is another way in which she was important is a little ways into her time on the show, she discovered that everybody else, including like rando members of the set, was making many times what she was making.
Oh, wow.
So what was she taking home every week for 14-hour day, 6-day-a-week schedule?
I don't know. 500 pounds?
90 pounds.
90 pounds?
Yes.
That's crazy.
So she found out that she's being paid less than almost everybody else. And she waged a big battle against the producers for equal pay. They played hardball with her, but she won out. And I think that's another reason that Diana Rigg is a pretty important character.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, I'm going to move on from Diana Rigg. She's really cool. I really enjoyed reading up on her, as you can tell from all the time I just spent discussing her. You should Google her and check it out. I'll go quickly through the next two people, and then we'll get into the actual show that we're here to discuss.
All right.
Patrick McNee plays John Steed, her partner. McNee, he was expelled from college when he was young. Why do you think, do you want to take a guess as to why he was expelled?
I don't know, for not wearing his uniform.
No, it's a little more salacious than that. He was selling pornography and he was running a student gambling ring.
Patrick.
Which is ironic because as his career developed, he became known as like a real gentleman, like a really good human being. But he was, throughout the 50s, he was the very definition of what you like to call, John, that guy.
Yeah.
He was in a ton of US and Canadian TV shows, basically like Twilight Zone, Rawhide, every show you could be on, he was on. And when he was cast for the role of John Steed, he was actually on the verge of quitting acting because he hadn't ever gotten a big Hollywood break, and the financial instability of being a working actor was making it hard to live. But he took this role and he became the backbone of the franchise. He was the only cast member to stay continuously on it across its entire run. And just as Emma Peel had a really iconic look, he had an iconic look of his own. Do you want to describe what his look is?
He looks like a very, very classic British gentleman. He's got a pinstripe suit, an umbrella, and a bowler hat. He worked with fashion designers as well to kind of cultivate a unique look. The thing he brought to the genre is playing a secret agent who is mostly smart and clever and charming rather than tough and athletic and awesome at shooting things. Right.
McNee was, I understand, a pretty class act. He backed up all of his co-stars who were much younger and newer to the industry than him. He would go to bat for them behind the scenes with showrunners. And he seems to have been a pretty quality guy. And he passed away in 2015.
I know him. You know what I know him best from?
What's that?
He does the narrated. He's the narrator who does the voiceover at the beginning of the original 1978 Battlestar Galactica.
Does he really?
Yes, and I can hear him saying, "Or the Mayans, or the Toltecs." That is Patrick McNee, and I can't unhear that. So
hey, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, last person I want to discuss, and then we really will discuss the actual episode. I promise. I want to discuss.
Well, we got to discuss Peter.
This episode had a guest star on it, as. With all of these shows, if it was like a mystery or something, you had to know that whoever the famous celebrity guest was going to turn out to be the bad guy.
Yeah, in his case, he's
here.
like extra clearly a bad guy.
Yes.
Like, right?
The person we're talking about is Peter Cushing.
Ah, yes.
And he's famous. Like, as with Diana Rigg, you can go read his Wikipedia entry if you want to know. I will just say he also started out in theater, and then he did a bunch of genre roles. He became a huge TV star in Britain.
And movie star.
And a movie star. And so by the time he guested on this episode of The Avengers, he was an international icon. He was a household name.
Yeah.
Interestingly, John, both he and Diana Rigg both came out of stage production, stage acting.
Oh, he's got stage actor written all over him.
Yeah. And, they both gave the same reason when they were asked why they moved to film. And can you guess why that is?
Was it money?
No, it was, that may have been part of it, but they both cited that they just got really sick of the repetition of doing the same stage performance over and over and over again.
I've been curious about that because that's got to be exhausting. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was in a ton of stuff, including some Hammer films like The Curse of Frankenstein and Dracula. And the director of this episode, Robert Day, actually directed Peter Cushing in a Hammer film called She. Okay. And they brought that horror genre collaboration with them into this episode, I think. So
that's interesting. Now, what is interesting is in a lot of the Hammer films, especially the Dracula ones, he was Van Helsing, who is a good guy nominally.
Yes.
And it just speaks to how sinister Christopher Lee looks as Dracula, that you could buy Peter Cushing as not the villain of a movie. So
yes.
And now, of course, Gen Xers and everyone else knows him as Grand Moff Tarkin in Star Wars.
The guy in Star Wars who is in charge of the Death Star, basically.
Holding Vader's leash.
That's right. And he is what a delight. I mean, he is. When you see him on screen. He
played war games, by the way. Like, there's this game called Little Wars. He was like a miniature collector and war game player. And like, he's like a nerd dream,
Yeah. Like, everything I read about him suggests that he was just like a super great person to work with.
Yeah.
He was like best friends with Christopher Lee. And I was going to ask you that trivia question, what his hobby was. But yeah, he had...
Oh, sorry, I busted your trivia question.
He collected thousands of like little model miniature soldiers and stuff. Anyway, What a character.
Yes.
All right. But that's all I want to go through because we have to actually talk about...
Yes. Now that was delightful, but yes.
Zombies.
Let's talk about the zombies.
All right. So John, I've been talking for what seems like about 7 hours. So I'm going to ask you to give us our 30 or 60 second overview of Return of the Cybernauts, Season 5, Episode 17 of The Avengers.
This episode is about someone is abducting scientists. We don't know why initially or who is doing it, but it turns out that in a previous episode of The Avengers, a man named Armstrong had invented the Cybernaut, which is an automaton robot that cannot be destroyed. And we learned that who has been abducting these scientists is the Cybernaut. And further, though Armstrong was killed, his brother, played by Peter Cushing, is alive and wants to take revenge on John Steed and Emma Peel. So he is using Cybernauts to abduct scientists that can devise a sinister plan to take care of John and Emma forever in a way that is sinister and painful.
And related to the topic of this podcast.
Related to the topic at hand.
So we'll get to it. Thank you for that overview, John.
Yeah, first of all, this is like spies, spy villains always have elaborate plots to like do something that's like, there's this, I don't know if it's famous. I remember it. This SNL sketch when not John Belushi, but Jim Belushi was on it. And it's like all the Bond villains gathered together and they're like doing a PSA and they're like, look, guys, if you get him, just shoot him. All right. Just quit messing around. Like, and so this plot very much feels like you could just shoot him, guy. Like,
Right. Yeah. This is a quite elaborate evil scheme.
Yes.
We'll get into some of the details. I don't think we need to go beat by beat through the plot. Why don't we talk a little bit about the opening? Because we're introduced to the Cybernaut, which I will argue is one of this film's two zombies.
Yes.
We get a cool opening sequence with 60s spy music, and we see Patrick McNeil. Well, we see John Steed and Emma Peel like kind of slinking around spy style, like just bantering. Can you describe their on-screen like relationship?
they're just incredibly familiar with each other, and there's just a touch of flirting, but not that much, actually. It's like they seem like two people who are just really comfortable with each other, but they're always sort of one-upping each other with quips and that sort of thing.
Yeah, they got along really well in person, the two actors, and they would change up their lines to put in like little inside jokes for each other and to try and make each other laugh.
Nice.
So I think that sort of comfortable familiarity comes across in their performance. But they're always doing this sort of like arch banter with each other.
Yes. Can I like here's what I wanted to say earlier about them being blasé or laissez-faire. Like the impact of this totally doesn't bother them, right? Like they're talking about, and they're just sort of casually tossing off that the world's going to end, sort of thing. Like speaking of Austin Powers making fun of it, the best example was in the second movie, Elizabeth Hurley, you find out she's a fembot and tries to kill him. And so he goes to Peter York, who's the spy boss. He's like, oh, yeah, sorry, old chap, knew about it all the time. Anyway, like it's that kind of attitude throughout the entire episode, Yes,
exactly. So this episode opens up in I was not surprised to learn that the director had done some horror based on the way this episode opens, because it opens with a kind of zany series of camera shots as
this is crazy.
We approach the front door of a mansion.
And there must be 20 cuts where you're zooming closer in the door, and then you zoom in at like 15 degrees, and like you zoom until you're at the door. It's super noticeable and heavy-handed and also amazing.
And what or who breaks through the door into this house and captures? He doesn't kill this. He captures the inhabitant.
Captures him. So what breaks through is the perfect example of cheap British television 1960s costuming, all right? It is a cybernaut. And it's a cybernaut because it's got a metal head, except I'm assuming they couldn't figure out how to make the eyes look good, so they put sunglasses on him.
Yes.
and a fedora and a black trench coat that goes all the way down to the knee, so they didn't have to make like a whole robot body, and black gloves and boots, so he can judo chop, hit the people he's attacking. He looks intimidating, and he's got just enough robot face showing so it's not a human being.
Yeah, the glasses just really, it's
so he can be incognito because he's so.
The look of it reminds me of like early low budget like Doctor Doom kind of.
Yes,
if that makes sense.
It does.
So yeah, this is one of our zombies, and let's just go ahead and talk about it. So when I say that this is one of our zombies, John, what do I mean?
Well, there are actually two zombies, and we don't get to the next zombie till very late in the show. My initial thought, since I hadn't researched the episode ahead of time, is that, like, Andy, is this really zombie enough to be a zombie? Because he is an automaton. He's a scientifically created zombie, though he's made of metal. I don't know if there's supposed to be a real person in there, but they're like a mindless killing zombie that is controlled by a zombie master, but it's all scientific and electronic.
Yeah, I'm curious, did this remind you of any of the zombie movies we've seen?
Just Creature with the Atom Brain, really.
I was thinking Creature with the Atom Brain.
Yeah, it was very much like that. Though he's metal instead. He's not a person with a converted brain. I don't know if he's a construct or somebody who's been converted into this thing.
Yeah, he's the type of zombie that earlier in the previous episodes we've said kind of evolved into like the Terminator or Jason.
Yeah, like zombies of the stratosphere, like kind of stuff.
It moves slow and implacably. It's immune to, like, later in the episode, people are going to shoot at it, and it isn't bothered. You can't overpower it,
There's a bit right out of any zombie movie or slasher movie you care to watch where somebody's running away from him towards his car. He drops his keys. He has to run back and grab his keys and looks back, and the entire time the Cybernaut is just slowly walking towards him. That would be right at home in a Friday the 13th movie or in Zombieland or anything you care to mention. So,
and I should mention, I think the only zombie movie that came out this year. So remember when this came out, we were 1 year away from Night of the Living Dead.
Right.
When this came out, I think The Deadly Organ was the only zombie movie. And I don't know that would have been widely seen in the US.
Probably not.
But this type of zombie is like harkens back to like the 30s and 40s.
Yes.
The 40s especially, I think. So, but we have a more zombie-like zombie later in the show that we're going to get to. I'm just going to kind of sum up how this all begins. So the deal is that Peter Cushing's character, Mr. Beresford, he wants revenge because his brother was a mad scientist who invented the Cybernauts.
Right.
Steed and Emma don't realize that he is the brother of one of their old arch nemeses.
Correct.
So
they're friends with him for some reason we don't completely understand.
Yeah, so he has basically insinuated him. He has befriended them. He has charmed his way into their social life. So like 2/3 of this episode is him having them over for drinks, basically, and hitting on Emma. So he's trying to befriend them because he has this convoluted plot. He wants revenge on them, but and you would think, well, he also controls a Cybernaut. Why doesn't he just have the Cybernaut kill them? It's because he wants them to suffer as much as it's possible to suffer. Like it'd be too good a death to just have the Cybernaut judo chop them, right? I guess.
And he gives and because it's Peter Cushing, and he's like, and I want them to suffer. Like like you can buy it because it's Peter Cushing, right? And he's just like in pure villain mode. But like when you think about it for 30 seconds, you're like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Can you like I try to remember when I'm watching him that like in real life, this is like a kindly man.
Yes.
It's like
he rolls those R's and he's like, they will suffer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
there's a couple lines he speaks that are very close to Star Wars lines. And I actually had deja vu. Like he said something about dealing with somebody later. And it sounds like deal with your rebel friends later. The exact same intonation. And you just can't unhear it when you've seen a movie 100 times, or a million, or however many times I've seen it.
This, I will say, as progressive and even feminist in some ways as this show is, it still has that like mid-century thing where it was quite reasonable for someone approximately twice your age to be hitting on a woman like twice their age.
Yes,
which it seems really weird watching it with 2026 eyes, but. Anyway, so the way that Emma and Steed get drawn into this is basically a bunch of scientists are being kidnapped. So a lot of the movie is them trying to figure out who is kidnapping the scientists and why a seemingly random, like scientists from a wide range of expertises are being kidnapped. And John, can you tell us why they're being kidnapped?
Well, they're being kidnapped by Peter Cushing so they can, this is great. He doesn't have a plan. His plan is to get scientists who are really smart and have them make a plan about how he's going to kill Steed and Peel. Like, he's like, your job is to come up with a cruel way to kill them.
Yes.
You can have any money you want, but I have no idea how you guys pitch me something. You know, he's like a studio executive. I don't have any actually ideas here. I just am going to hire people with ideas and tell them that they're bad if I don't like them. Yeah.
Yeah. They're like literally, he just wants them to brainstorm a really nasty way to kill Steed. And
right.
Which is really funny.
Again, a lot of effort to something like you could just run them over. Or
it really is. It's worth saying that I really love his mad scientist setup because he, in his house, which he is constantly inviting Steed and Peel over like for drinks in, he has a one-way mirror. Is it a one-way or a two-way mirror?
It's a one-way mirror.
A one-way mirror setup. So Steed and Peel, so he's got this big mirror in his living room, basically, and right on the other side is his mad science lair.
Correct.
It's like got all these computer banks and he's got this like Igor style assistant and they can see through the mirror. And it just makes for some fun, like visual moments in the film where
it does. It made me ask the question though, right? Like now, if you're watching there's a cop thriller and somebody's being interviewed and there's clearly an observational mirror so people can see, you get this shot of the person being interrogated like side-eyeing the mirror because they know there's other people on the other side of it. At what point were people aware enough in society that they were no longer going to believe that a normal smart person wouldn't understand that there's such a thing as a one-way mirror? You know what I mean?
Yeah. That is actually a fascinating question.
Because Emma she adjusts her hair in the mirror and John Steed looks in the mirror and like they think nothing of it. And it's a giant mirror. It's not like a little, like it's like 5 feet across and 3 feet high. It's not like a tiny little thing, Well,
I think we're at a point in time where just the idea of all this surveillance felt really exciting. We've seen this in a number of zombie movies where the movie is clearly extremely excited just to show you that the bad guy has a remote camera through which he's watching the heroes.
Yeah, that is a theme in our zombie films. and maybe it's in all films, but yes, remote cameras everywhere.
Yeah. It's very exciting. So,
and these cameras are hilarious because I'm sure they're cutting edge at the time, but like we look at them and they're like sticking out of the eyeball of a statue or something. And I'm like, I can see that from 100 feet away. It's on white. It's a giant black dot on a white statue. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
I'm just going to summarize what happens. And then John, can you just pull out a couple things that were fun for you that you want to discuss? The bulk of the episode is Beresford kidnapping some scientists. One of the scientists is like a collaborator who's happy to help out.
Right.
One scientist manages to escape and is recaptured. And there's various shenanigans that go on with the scientists. And it ends when the scientists present Beresford with the plan they've come up with.
Yes.
And so, John, is there anything between the intro stuff that we've talked about and the revelation of the plan that you want to pull out, like any scenes or moments?
There are a couple, like the scene I mentioned before where the guy's running from the Cybernaut. It has a very strong horror movie vibe.
Yes.
And he's driving, by the way, a Jaguar Mark I, actually.
Oh, yes.
It's a very old Jaguar.
There is a scene where the Cybernaut breaks in to recapture an escaped scientist. Yeah. And I think they're in like Emma's house or maybe their headquarters or something. Anyway, it's shot in a very horror movie like way. And that is also the scene where she gets like bodily hurled into a wall. I was like, that's gotta hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. And clearly like there's a couple of scenes where Pat McNee has to like stand in front of a car that's rushing at him and dive out of the way. And it's like the worst screen painting, like back projection you've ever seen. Like you're totally unconvinced. Yeah. I would like to talk about their cars.
Yeah, I was going to say, tell us about the cars because there's some very 60s looking spy cars in this.
Yeah. But John Steed drives a 1930s Bentley Speed 6. This is why that's important. In all the books and in the early books, except for one time until like of the Ian Fleming books, James Bond drives a Bentley convertible, just like that. And in fact, his first car is a 1930s Bentley convertible, very similar to the one John Steed has here. He crashes that, I think, in Dr. No. But in any case, he then buys a 1953 Bentley convertible. Like, it's the same style of car that John Steed is driving, like to the letter.
Now, it looked to me like an old-timey car.
It is. It's like 30 years old at the timing of this show.
So it would have been like a retro car at the time?
Yes, for sure.
And it's like the size of a bus.
Well, and there's a joke in the James Bond books where and his is always slate gray is his requirement. And it's like, well, nobody's going to run you off the road in this thing. Like they describe it as a tank, even though it's a convertible. So yes. So I think that is a direct callback to James Bond. Now, what is interesting is Diana Rigg drives a Lotus Elan S3, which is a very cool car. At this time, James Bond in the movies had that sweet Aston Martin DB5, the silver one with the bulletproof shield. Like that car is like that cool.
It does look pretty cool, and it looks so small compared to that bigger one that I've already forgotten.
Like that's a zippy little sports car, and John Steed's car is a tank for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what else, John, you want to call out before we get to their sinister plot and the end game?
I don't want to give this show too credit for being feminist. They put this absolutely horrendous secretary who talks like a child, who just wants to be famous and have men hit on her in the middle of this episode. It was excruciating.
It was. She is in it. They clearly thought this was a really funny character because she's in like 3 long scenes and it's really painful to watch.
It's really painful. The other note I took here is there's a lot of people flopping on couches. Like the Cybernaut drags somebody into a cell and they throw them on a couch. And then a guy is escaping a Cybernaut and he breaks into Emma Peel's house and he flops on a couch. And then John Steed gets punched by a Cybernaut and he flops on a couch. Like everybody's just flopping on couches like the whole episode.
So at the end of there's a lot of shenanigans. Cybernauts are fought, clues are tracked down, witty banter is exchanged.
Can I say that I also don't feel like John Steed just gets lucky. Like he feels very reactive. Like he is going to investigate clues, but I don't know that I could say he puts together a lot of clues. Like enough to say it's an investigation. Yeah.
The Steed and Peel are pretty passive. I have not watched enough of the show to know. I mean, but all of the interesting stuff is done by the villain. Like it's all the villain is doing the interesting stuff. And they they kind of get pulled into it, and they eventually kind of figure it out, but not because they worked real hard to gain the information. It's more because it slowly sort of dawns on them what's going on.
Yeah, they sort of figure it out in between dinner parties with the villain, I also love that Peter Cushing is like, somebody actually calls him on this. This is a classic narrative story trope, like when the villain's doing something stupid, you have a lesser character mention they're doing something stupid, and then you have them justify it. And that happens in this. One of the characters says, why to go to all this trouble? And he basically says, because it's a game of cat and mouse. Like he just, so without Peter Cushing being ridiculously villainous, like this whole thing would seem very silly. It's still very silly, but because it's got Patrick McNee and Diana Reagan, Peter Cushing, like it just works fantastically.
I'd agree. All right, so let's get to the final plan, which involves zombies. Zombies,
but they don't say zombies, but they're zombies.
Don't. So, but the scientists eventually come to Beresford and they say, "We've done it. We've come up with the perfect way, the worst fate that you could possibly subject a person to, and it is."
It is to put a device on your wrist. I think they turn them into wristwatches, but it's a device that interacts with your nervous system and makes you a mindless automaton that can be controlled by the person with the right control system. Yes. So essentially it makes you a zombie in the service of a zombie master, but it's entirely technological.
Yes. And this is very much the zombie as a tragic figure sort of zombie.
Yep.
Because very specifically, it's restated multiple times, you remain totally aware of what's going on, even while somebody controls you.
Your torment is that you are aware of what's going on. Peter Cushing hits this point multiple times, but they remain, they don't say consciousness, but they're aware of what's going on the entire time.
At one point, Beresford says, they will not die, and yet they'll wish they were dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's going to turn Steed and Peel into zombies. So the mechanism, the way that they do this is like very complex and like involves a lot of goofiness.
And they've got to pick up their vitals and they divine this device to why did they even start talking about it? It's bizarre, and I couldn't even tell you what happens.
Yeah, they introduced some technobabble stuff that I think could have been trimmed without really hurting the plot too much. But that's
actually, there's one bit I like is the one scientist that refuses to help. He's like, I figured it out. Give me this stuff, and I'll make this device. And then he brings it to Peter Cushing. It's like this box, and Peter Cushing is like, I see what you're holding, but what does this do? And he goes, this, and he flicks a button and throws it on the ground. It's a smoke grenade, and he sprints away like bad supervillain vigilance here. You need to think these things through a bit more. You have all these cameras. Why aren't they on your guys here?
That causes them a lot of problem because then they have to dispatch the Cybernaut to go get him back.
Yes.
And stuff. Yeah, it's a real problem. I wanted to say that I think we've seen this in maybe Atomic Brain, but any movie where they posit that you can use a little gamepad controller to control someone, I always am bothered because they'll push a button and then the zombie will raise its arm, for example. It's like, did they dedicate a whole button on the controller to raising the arm? Are there 356 buttons on this thing? One for each possible action you could take?
It does bother me too. I'm like, really? That thing is not that big. But they have to do complex things like attack somebody and strangle them and The
Beresford does put his sinister zombie plan into action. He gets Peel to put on a wristwatch in which he has put the zombification device.
Right.
It turns her into a zombie, and she, kind of goes blank-faced and starts walking around exactly like a 1930s or 40s zombie does.
Yep.
The plan was to get a watch on Steed as well to zombify him, but due to some exciting happenings or whatever, he doesn't put the watch on, basically. Well,
this is why I say he's lucky. He just has to rush out the door and he leaves it on the table. Or maybe the mad scientist is unlucky. Hard to say.
So Emma, obeying the commands of Beresford, gets in her Lotus, her cool car, and races back to Beresford's house. Steed follows in his much bigger car that we've discussed.
Yeah.
And then when they get there, he confronts Emma and says, hey, you're acting a little bit strange. And then she does, everyone in this show, when they need to subdue somebody, they judo chop them on the shoulder.
In the neck, right.
Yeah. and then they fall over. And so it seems like all is lost. All right. So,
Oh, yeah. I thought this was the last episode of the series, Andy.
Yeah.
I won't lie.
what a grim way to end the show. You know?
So anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. So Emma's, they're all back in this mad science lab. Emma's been zombified, and Steed regains consciousness, but he's been captured. And Beresford does a whole lot of gloating and, mad, evil villain type of stuff.
Excellent villaining.
Then a big scuffle breaks out when they try to put the zombie watch on Steed. In the scuffle, Steed tricks them so that they accidentally put the watch on the Cybernaut instead of on him. And that causes the Cybernaut to basically go crazy.
Yep.
And it starts just randomly attacking everybody.
And I think I'm gonna steel man this weird scene. I think that the energy pulse that the watch puts out disrupts its normal programming, and that causes it to go berserk. How about that?
Yes. Okay. Perfect. So it's attacking everyone. The henchmen are running around, and there we get a fight scene where Steed and Peel both do a lot of cool karate moves and punch and kick people and stuff. But
did you notice you didn't say Patrick McNee and Diana Rigg, because only one of those two people actually did any actual karate moves.
Okay. Yeah. Point taken.
I'm sorry to dog Patrick McNee. He's beloved. It's just he's a spy who clearly has no aptitude as an actor for action. So
yeah, he does not scream, "I'm an action hero."
Correct.
Which to
is
his
fine.
credit, I think we probably are seeing about as much action in this episode as he ever does, because I think generally he tried to play it more cool and charming. But at any rate, they basically defeat everybody, and of course, your villain has to get an ironic death.
Yes.
So the Cybernaut, in its insane rage, grabs Beresford, and Peter Cushing's acting, his facial expressions, while he's pretending to be squeezed to death by the Cybernaut, are something to behold. Like, he is,
he's unafraid to just sell it. I think that's what makes him. He's not like De Niro or something, right? He's just completely unafraid to go big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, a thing I read about him, and a thing he was proud of, was that he played a lot of like very campy villainous roles, but he never played them campily. Like, he always played them straight, and he felt it was like a service to the audience. So they, Steed and Peel, they break the Cybernauts control thing, and they switch it off, but it's too late. It has killed Beresford. And then we close with a little comic scene.
Yes.
A little denouement, in which Steed is trying to fix a toaster, and it goes horribly. They make some jokes about modern technology, I think, because of their run-in with the Cybernaut. And then the gag is the toaster like explodes and launches through the roof. And then, in a sick burn on the British space program, Steed says, "That's the first thing Great Britain's ever got into orbit."
Yeah, dang.
I
mean, it's only 1967.
Yeah, it's kind of harsh.
It's kind of harsh. And I think the point is that they're not even trying. So,
right.
Yeah.
So, and that's a wrap on Return of the Cybernauts.
Yes.
So, John,
delightful.
Yeah. I had so much fun with this. Do we want to go through some of our questions?
Let's do some of our questions. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
Andy, is this a TV show with zombies or a zombie TV show?
This is a TV show with zombies.
Agreed. What makes you say that?
They are, because, well, first of all, most of the show doesn't have anything to do with zombies. The zombies are a part of the show for about 10% of its runtime.
Right.
And nothing, when we ask that question, we're really asking, like, does this require specifically that there were zombies in it for this story to have worked? Like, if we could swap out the zombies for some other kind of sinister, a bad guy, then to me that makes it a show with zombies.
I agree.
And I think that's what we're dealing with here. I think the real zombie is zombie Emma Peel at the end.
Yep.
And, that's a good couple of minutes of loved ones turning against you type zombie, horrors in quotes, because at no point is it really scary.
No, but she feels like the Dr. Satan zombies, right?
Right.
They're just automatons that do whatever they're directed to do. And yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So, Andy, would we survive in the world of the Avengers and the Cybernauts?
Yes, I think so.
Is it for the same reason I think so, which is that we're not important enough to be abducted by a cybernaut?
Well, yeah, this question is always tricky because something like this, you're really only in danger if you have crossed a very particular person,
right,
who has then become obsessed with getting revenge. So in that sense, you and I are unlikely to have done something so bad to this guy that he wants to zombify us.
Yeah, and we just hope producer Brad isn't hatching some scheme.
I mean, I guess if a cybernaut were coming after me, I would probably be in trouble. As always, it's walking slow, and the thought is just like, how hard could it be to just run away from this thing?
Right. But however,
if it cornered me in my office like it does to one or two people in this show, it probably could judo chop me.
It does seem threatening when you're cornered.
Yes.
Right? Like it's big
once
and hulking.
Once it grabs you, you're probably toast.
Yes. Yeah. Agree. So, Andy, do you like this television show? A, enough to recommend it to a general audience, and B, as a piece of essential literature in the zombie canon for our zombie-loving fans?
So I'm going to say a solid yes on do I recommend this episode and this show generally, especially if, like me, you weren't around when the show first came out and you kind of missed the cultural excitement that surrounded it. It really is a delight. It really does feel like you're watching a very pure artifact of the late 60s.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's hard for me to imagine, not enjoying watching an episode of this.
Right.
I don't, whether that holds up over, 50 episodes, I leave that to you to decide for yourself, dear listener.
Yeah.
As for zombie, so no, I don't think this is essential viewing if you're a zombie fan. I do think it's interesting that here we are right before Night of the Living Dead. It's actually possible that this might have come out in 68 in America. I was a little confused. It certainly was 67 in Britain, but at any rate, it is interesting that it seems to me that from our limited viewing of TV shows, we've seen Man from U.N.C.L.E., we saw Thriller, and we saw The Avengers. All of them are really employing zombies from like 2 decades earlier.
Yeah.
So these TV shows are not on like the forefront of the zombie genre. They're not pushing it forward. I think that's pretty interesting as a fact. I also think it means that you do not need to watch this because the types of zombies in this show are, you've seen them before if you've watched any earlier zombie film.
Yeah, I'll just mirror your recommendation, particularly on the zombie nature of it. The one thing I will say about enjoying this show, so right now I have shows I watch with my family. We just hang out and watch. And my son and I are currently watching the animated adult superhero show Invincible.
Oh, yeah.
Which is great, but also very dire, in hyper violent. And then with my wife, I'm watching the show Hacks, about these 2 foul-mouthed comedians, which is also very good, but like just tons of lewd jokes and stuff. Yeah. So there was a definite pleasure, and maybe this just makes me old, in just watching a simple, silly adventure story with lovable characters and just relaxing and having a good time. Like we just watched an episode of Invincible, and I was like, no. Like it had good drama. I didn't want something to happen, and there's none of that here. And it was just like, oh, that's relaxing, Yes. And it's competent and entertaining.
Yeah.
So
and nothing's going to happen to upset you, and you're not going to be tense at the end of it.
Right.
And
maybe we all need that a little bit right now.
Yeah. This always makes me pine for the TV of yesteryear, like TV through the 90s or whatever, where you would like be just watching it to hang out with these people,
Yeah. Yes. So 2 of my favorite shows are the Battlestar Galactica reboot by Ron Moore, which is just an amazing television show, incredibly gritty, tough decisions are made. And I also love the miniseries Chernobyl, which might be the most depressing piece of TV produced this century. But while I was watching this and I made that connection with Patrick McNee in the original Battlestar Galactica, I was like, maybe I just want to go back and watch the original a little bit. You know, like the stakes are low. Like the stakes aren't low, but it's a much less intense experience, and maybe sometimes I want that instead.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So. All right. Well, everybody, we will be returning soon with our first zombie episode, bringing back a beloved character from season 1. So we will see you in a few weeks for more Zombie Strains. You've been listening to Zombie Strains. We'll be back next episode to talk about another zombie movie. If you enjoyed our podcast, please take a moment to rate us in your podcast app of choice. Tell a friend. Follow us on Instagram at Zombie Strains. All of this helps like-minded people find the show. See you next time.